Fellow Kenyans, I've seen the recent uproars over the claims of politicians having goons. You know, people, they accuse even government officials of having goons and breeding goons for to assault their opponents. And I want to categorically call out leaders who are talking about these goons, especially leaders who have thrived on criminal enterprises. You know, leaders like Fred Matiang'i, the man who filled our rivers with the blood and tears and bodies of young men executed all over the country, from northeastern, you know, to coast, you know, to Nairobi. A good number of young people were executed. There are even young businessmen who were kidnapped in Nairobi here during the reign of the terror reign of Matiang'i. They were taken in forests around the country, including in Nairobi. You know, you saw the Somali man, you know, the young Somali businessman who was kidnapped from somewhere in Lavington, Miale Bar and Restaurant to be exact, and executed somewhere, and the vehicle, a brand new Range Rover, very high-end vehicle, burnt. Nobody talked and even pursued the case to its logical conclusion. There are even people, including the security analyst, who cannot be produced up to now. Matiang'i ran a rogue police and criminal network which was responsible for doing the worst things. The young Indians who came here to do business, you know, around politicians, including the current president, William Ruto. And they were executed just because Uhuru Kenyatta did not like the fact that they were supporting his opponent. These people were taken to, were kidnapped by officers who are being directed by Matiang'i. They were executed. Their bodies were dumped in one of the national parks, and they were eaten by hyenas. The only thing which was found buried was the clothes of these poor young Indians who came here to just do business around elections. It is very unfortunate that today the voice of morality in Kenya has been reduced to Matiang'i. That is how rotten this society must be, for Matiang'i to now claim the high moral authority. Babu Owino, who almost killed a very young DJ whose crime was just to tell him that, oh, you know, you've just gotten your gun and you don't even know how to hold your gun. So he decided to show the young DJ by shooting him, leaving him paralyzed up to today. The same person who is bragging on TV to have criminal networks of goons is calling for the arrest of others he calls goons. I don't know why the DCI is conflicted on this, if DCI is biased or not, if the DPP is not realizing the kind of crimes being committed by the likes of Babu Owino and Fred Matiang'i. When they go on TV and admit crimes, if somebody is admitting that they have criminal networks of goons, which they can unleash on opponents, which they can use. If you are an officer of the law and you think that you have an alternative justice system which is full of thugs, you know, it is very unfortunate. And I think that you have to be called out and you have to be told that you are too immature to even understand what you're talking about. The second thing which I want to address is the fact that these young men who are in Kisumu, are in Kakamega, who are all over Nairobi, and have been branded to be all goons. There's one broom which has been swept in their, you know, all life, and they've all been called goons. You know, for the opposition politics, I'm talking as somebody who has followed the late Raila Amolo Odinga for decades. And I can tell you for a fact that the product of some regions staying in the opposition politics or opposition formation for a very long time means that we have individuals who their parents and grandparents never tasted formal employment. These people have learned how to survive with the jua kali if they were lucky, or some of them dropped out of school and eventually became very comfortable around politicians or political activities, because that was the only gainful employment you could get in the opposition strongholds. It is very unfortunate when somebody claimed that every young jobless man in Kisumu, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia, Nairobi, and so on is now a goon. Every young man who does not have meaningful employment is now a goon, and they must be arrested. In fact, the unfortunate incident in Kisumu has seen some young men arrested without due process. They have been arrested, they have not been charged. The police has applied to detain them for a period of 7 days. This is just detention without trial. I don't know why detention without trial is very wrong for activists who have been accused or people who have been mobilizing against President William Ruto. Yeah, you know, the detention without trial, it is very wrong in that instance, but it's very convenient and very right when somebody is a young man from Kisumu who is just jobless and is being accused of crime. Even people who have been found committing a crime, they must go through the due process, and the due process dictates that they be heard in a very just, you know, and a system which also respects the rights of the accused. It is very unfortunate when I see young people being detained now for 7 days without even the complainant lodging a statement with the police. When Osotsi claimed that he was in hospital, we excused it. But immediately he got a chance to get out of the hospital, his first stop was the media. So I don't know if this case, because he knows that he doesn't have evidence against these young people, he's going to prosecute it in the court of the public opinion, or he is willing to prosecute it in the court of law. It is very unfortunate that the fact that some people have taken photos with these young men, now you call these people sponsors of the young men. Babu Owino is admitting on TV, on radio, online, that he is sponsoring goons. He should be arrested for admitting crimes openly. I don't know the kind of friendship he has with the DCI boss. I don't know what kind of friendship makes him very insulated from the actions of the DPP, that he cannot be held account, you know, but is being used to smear the name of government officials just because he has disagreed with them. There are people who have been paralyzed, and there is no statute of limitation. There are people who have been paralyzed because of the actions of Babu Owino. There is a returning officer who is missing up to today, and Babu Owino brags in all corridors for everybody who cares to listen that he was involved in the death of the IBC officials. There are young men who were in the university during the days of Babu Owino, the terror reign of Babu Owino in Sonu. And he has admitted severally that he was using those young men to run his criminal enterprises in the university. I don't know why anybody can claim that these people are the most innocent and they are now the voice of moral authority, of morality in this country, that they now can tell you that this is a goon, this is not a goon, this is a criminal, this is not a criminal. You know, it is very unfortunate that suddenly the worst criminals in this country are calling others criminals. So I think that we need to realize that you are not going to intimidate every jobless young man to be a goon or to be a criminal. The fact that we have so many jobless young men means that we need to find a solution to the problem. We need to find ways of formalizing our economy so that we don't have an economy where 18.5 million people are employed, but out of those, only 3 million people are in the formal employment. It means that the remaining 15.5 million people cannot access various services like insurance, like health provisions, and so on. We need to find ways of formalizing some of these sectors. We need to find ways of providing solutions, employment to these young people who are also not in the formal employment in the employment bracket, whether formal or informal. If we have 18 million people, 18.5 million people employed, it means that out of a population of 52 million people, probably another 22 million people don't have employment. So this country is running on a goon economy. How do you call each other, everyone a goon? Well, everybody is basically a goon. 22 million people. You have more goons in this country than the employed people. It is very unfortunate that the people who are supposed to be providing solutions, bringing in bills, you know, providing in even innovation hubs and so on, and, you know, kind of delivering the tangible solutions to the problems, are coming out and branding and smearing young people and calling them goons. These young men who have been detained in Kisumu are going through what we call detention without trial. The DPP has to find ways of releasing them very fast, because what is happening, it is a ticking time bomb. The moment you push the young people that they know that they don't have due process when they are arrested, and they are either executed by the roadside by the DCI, or they are smeared by the society and called goons because they are unemployed, it means that the moment they get a chance to do something wrong, they will do it, and they'll make sure that they'll not be found by either killing the suspects or even, disappearing kabisa. So we need to find a solution to the problem. We need not to call these young unemployed youth goons. And if we are doing so and we are falling for the smear campaign of Babu Owino, Fred Matiang'i, Rigathi Gachagua, and all these charlatans, then we know that we are doing a very great disservice to this country. We have to wake up. We have to stop falling for a lot of propaganda and realize that this country is built on due process. We must stick to the law. What does the law say about people who have been accused of a crime? They have to go through the formal judicial process. And if they're going through unjust corners where people are now intimidating judicial officials to detain people without hearing them well, then we are doing a very great disservice to these young people. And we must stop. We must rethink. We must stop, rethink, and reflect on what we are doing to these young people. Not everybody who is jobless is a goon. These young people, if you feel that they committed a crime, take them through a formal legal process. But don't smear them, and don't try to claim high moral authority just because you have a beef to grind with somebody. Thank you.